welcome to another episode of Interama. It's been actually not that long since the last episode. For my standards, I think it's only been a couple weeks. But I was actually really inspired to continue the detail work of some of the areas that we're working on in the previous episode. And as you can see here, I'm starting with the, what I'm now going to call Gondola Towers. In the previous episode, I called them cable cars. In fact, the whole name of the episode is called cable cars. I was then corrected by some of you in the comments. You guys are right. These are gondolas and not cable cars. I guess in Spanish we call them all the same name. That's really why I was confused. In any case, the problem that we had is that, as you can see from the tower on the right, which is the original one that I got from the Steam Workshop, whenever the gondolas travel through the towers, the ones coming towards us in that direction, they will basically hit the tower and would be prevented from going forward. So, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but, the more I look at them, the less I was like, no, we need to fix this. So this is literally what I'm doing. I fixed this whole branch of the gondolas. I still have to fix the other branch, but we'll probably get to that later on in future episodes. For the time being, I'm just rearranging the cables. Now there's obviously a bigger gap between them, which it's not, it really doesn't affect anything other than what it looks like, and it sure does look nice. I'm quite happy. And then, I was thinking about this whole area by the ice cream shop, by the screenshot. I wasn't too happy with it, so I decided to sort of make a bigger area. And, part of this was somewhat inspired by sort of the latest updates in regards to Planet Coaster. So in the previous episode, if you remember, I don't know if you actually saw this, but it's worth mentioning. I had the pleasure to go to Frontier Expo 2017, and they made some big announcements. The one I'm the most interested in is the new addition of picnic tables. So if you haven't seen that, I'm going to include a link in the description so you can go check out the, it was a live stream, but it's already recorded and up on the Planet Coaster YouTube channel. That way you can see, because not only they announced picnic tables, that's the thing I'm excited about, but they did announce some other, management capabilities, the ability to train the personnel, the staff, and a few other little things that I probably won't use all that much because I don't, play the game like that. I'm mostly doing detailing here and there. But you might be interested in those. So again, I'm going to do you the favor and include the link in the description so you can check it out. On top of that, if you're interested in my trip in particular, where I got to meet many of the other pretty famous Planet Coaster players like Silverette, Lady Designer, Vlogs. I put together a bit of a blog. If you watch my Sea Skylines videos, you'll probably already hear this, but I'm going to include, again, the link in the description so you can see how that went. It's really short. It's like 4 minutes. In any case, the point that I was trying to make is that these picnic tables that they announced are actually going to be, they're going to make food courts in general somewhat functional. So my plan is, they haven't announced a date as far as I can tell, when that will be available, hopefully soon. But my goal is to sort of redo the areas. We kind of did some food court stuff several episodes ago, which, we have a whole bunch of tables. Oh, by the way, umbrellas are also going to be a thing. Well, I'll keep hitting my mic. Umbrellas are going to be a thing. So I kind of made my own umbrellas. They don't look amazing. They look okay from far away, but I'm hoping to sort of wait a few weeks maybe. We still have a lot of work to do here in Interama, but if the update comes out, in the next couple of months, I think we can sort of retrofit many of these areas to sort of fit these new picnic tables, which will behave similar to, the park benches and the trash cans. People will sort of collide with them because they have a hit area, apparently. And obviously they're going to use it. They're going to sit down. If they're eating something, they're going to look for that path. And I'm just sort of preparing here for the future. I'm going to leave that whole concrete area that you see on the screen right now open for now on detail until we can get our hands on those picnic tables. Now, the whole area that was surrounding this ice cream shop is, there used to be a path that sort of connected to the bridge, the wooden bridge that you just saw there, that one, the wooden one that's in the back. And I decided to sort of get rid of that and put a flat ride instead. Now, in previous episodes, I mentioned that I was kind of not following the layout of the park to 100%. I'm mostly, being inspired by it. So what I'm trying to do, I kind of left that idea a few episodes ago, specifically when I built that roller coaster in the back, which is in an area adjacent to this one, but not necessarily where it is right now. The point that I was trying to make is that I'm still, sort of using that park as a reference, and I'm trying to keep sort of the same flat rides in the same general areas, but not specifically exactly where they are, because it's just impossible. It's really, really difficult to get all the scales right and everything else. So this flat ride does exist there, and or a similar one for that matter. It's not exactly the same one, but I decided to sort of fit and add a bit more density to this area, because otherwise we'd have this huge areas of grass that, though they look nice, I mean they're okay. Game-wise, it just feels like it needs a bit more detail and not necessarily just adding vegetation. So I figured adding another flat ride and decorating it and adding some lights and things not only would make the whole area a little bit prettier, but also it would encourage visitors to travel around these areas. So in this episode, we're going to be putting together this flat ride right here. We're going to fully detail it, and then, as you probably saw from the thumbnail and you getting from the title of the screen, we're going to be doing Rocktopus on the island on the other side of that wooden bridge that you saw a second ago. I'm calling it Monster because that's the name of the ride, but we'll get to that in a moment. I'm getting ahead of myself. What I'm doing here, by the way, is just trying to keep the flat ride and the queue line to sort of be, like in the same plane, if that makes sense. I'm only using this wooden rope to separate the queue from the actual inside of the ride. And this is something that all these rides around this park don't really have a huge separation between the ride and the queues. They're kind of the queues are really, really short. And I'm actually struggling with that, because if I did the queues as short as they are in the real park, there's gonna be so much people just bouncing against the entrance because the queue will be always full. So, I'm trying to be clever about how I'm doing queues for these rides. Trying to wrap them around in a way where they kind of blend in with the ride itself, so it doesn't look like a real queue. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm kind of happy with how they look, by the way, and they're long enough to accommodate a large number of people. Now, in certain areas like this one, for example, there's this extension to the main path that I wanted to make as a sort of a resting area. There's going to be, a couple of trash cans, some benches. In fact, in a moment, you're going to see me put together a custom-made planter. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. Just create a whole set of custom props that I can reuse throughout the park. And I kind of did that with vegetation. I keep using the same clusters of flowers and bushes that I think are really, really versatile. They just accommodate every situation that I have in the park, whilst keeping sort of the trees, just loosely placed in the sense that they're not tied to any group of buildings. I wish there was an easier way in this game to sort of group all these clusters of props and elements. I keep having to resource to that 1 meter tile piece or to the wooden pole for pretty much everything, which is fine. I mean, you just have to hide it or sink it in the ground. I just wish that you didn't have to do that. Just make a group of out of any puzzle piece, not puzzle piece, but all these scenery objects, and just being able to move them all together. I was actually hunting the Steam Workshop for a couple of good assets that would help me, decorate areas a little bit faster. I found some really interesting lamps. You're going to see me do that in just a moment when I start decorating the monster ride or the Rocktopus. It's the problem is many of these lamps that I found were like really pretty, and obviously I was going to change it a little bit so it's not an exact copy, similar to what I did with the Gondola Towers. But they're not grouped. Like, these people just like grabbed those assets, so those scenery pieces, put them together, but they're like completely separated elements, and it's impossible to properly duplicate them and do any sort of basic maintenance. If you later want to like move your path or do anything like that, it's really tricky. So just decided to try my luck at making my own, and you'll see it's not amazing. It's a good enough. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm happy with how it looks, but I wish I was a bit more talented when it comes to making my own assets, specifically lamps. Now here I had that big patch of grass with the hedges around it, and I figured it'd be a nice area for a cool little fountain. So what I'm doing is I'm just duplicating a whole bunch of different fountains and putting them in together, kind of like a sandwich of fountains. Now I realized at this point that it was a little bit top heavy, so I decided to go for a more compact fountain design, and I settled on that one. However, it felt like it wasn't like, this is such a massive construction there that it deserved, a little bit more detail and not just the hedges that we have pretty much throughout the park. So I decided to add this metal fence all around it that has some like interesting design to the actual fence. I don't know, I just thought it was like very fitting, and it kind of like puts or brings that whole area together much more nicely. And obviously I'm reusing these walls with lights that I've been using pretty much throughout the park at this point. They're like their signature fencing element that I have everywhere. Now here, by the way, I'm calling this ride the Sillas Voladoras, which loosely translates to flying chairs. Actually, it translates literally to flying chairs in Spanish, of course. And this is sort of the name of the ride here. It's literally flying chairs, as you can see. And I was trying to, come up with a nice, sign design. Probably at some point I'm gonna get tired of the poor font choices this game has. That's like the biggest pet peeve, the biggest pet peeve I have. Sorry, I can't English right now from the game. I know I mentioned this a million times, but the font choices are really bad in this game. Don't get me wrong, the whole UI is amazing. Like, this game has the best user interface and mostly usability from all the games in this sort of genre and adjacent genres for that matter. But it's the font choices in game are really bad, which I guess is no longer a problem because you can do your own custom signs. However, the biggest problem with the custom signs, and this is something that we were talking about with a whole bunch of other YouTubers, some that I don't even know, at the Green Room in Frontier Expo the other day, is that there's to me there's two big things about the custom signs that need to be addressed, and I think they're not hard things to tackle. Thing number one is that the aspect ratio is wrong. It's not 1:1. It distorts whatever image you upload to it. If you go back a couple episodes ago to the Interama logo I put on the main entrance, it's a little bit deformed, I guess this will be the word. And the other thing that I think will be hugely benefit, and this is, I can't believe how many people went through this much trouble to get it to look right, but the fact that you can't upload a transparent PNG, which would make for some really interesting transparency elements. So for example, let's say you have a concrete wall and you want some like rust or some mud to sort of like come dripping from it. The way people are doing that is they're literally taking screenshots of the walls, putting them into Photoshop, adding the rust effect or whatever, and then putting that and replacing the whole wall with that texture, which is insane. It's so much easier if it just supported PNG transparency. That way you can overlay anything over anything and basically use those as decals, which is a feature that this game doesn't have yet. But other than that, I mean, the flexibility, it's kind of amazing in general. The one thing that hopefully, and I kind of, someone hinted at me that apparently they were working on it, is improving the efficiency of navigating the different menus. Because right now, every time you load up the scenery tab or the building tab, it just takes so long. It's like almost it's re-indexing every single list of object. It's basically creating a database every time you search anything, which is not very efficient. And I heard that, I think Flux told me this. I don't know where he got this information. We were on a cab on the way back to the convention center, but he mentioned that he heard someone mentioned that it's based on an old programming paradigm they started with when they started the game development. I don't really know what I'm talking about right now, but apparently it's like hard coded into the base game, and it's going to take a while before they actually tackle this issue, which to me, I mean, it would make me play the game a lot more, because I do get quite a bit frustrated with whenever I'm the bottleneck of doing something. That's fine, because I'm a human. But whenever I'm like faster, quote unquote faster than the machine, that's when I get like really frustrated. It's like, oh man, come on, this is I'm wasting so much time like just waiting for the menu to load. That it's, kind of takes away from my motivation. It's kind of fascinating how that works, but it happens quite a bit. I mean, it's obviously less and less so now that we have super fast computers, but like even when I do things in like Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever other design program or Premiere when I edit videos, if it's partially slow and I'm like already like a step ahead of the computer, thinking wise, or it's just, I mean, we need to fix that. I guess is what I'm trying to say. The computer, is much, much faster than me at everything. So it should be faster on every capacity that a computer is good at. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm finishing my rant right now. We're moving on to better, more eye candy things right now. Let's talk about what I'm doing here. So the entrances for all these rides, I'm trying to come up with like different designs so that they're not repeated over and over again. In fact, at some point I think we're going to start repeating them, because they do repeat quite a bit in the real park. There wasn't that much of a design difference or design planning for many of these rides. So what I'm doing here is I just set up some basic wooden elements and the bricks the bricks texture that we've been using pretty much throughout the park already. And try to sort of come up with a new entrance design, but that kind of follows the original design from the rest of the park, so that it's part of the same theme, I guess. It makes a little bit more sense. I came up with those rounded shapes, by duplicating and rotating the little wooden thing. I don't know if I love how it came out. I might come back to that one and fix it a bit, but I do love how this whole area came out in general, especially those, I don't know if they were like bamboo canes or whatever the name of that specific piece is, just wrapping this whole ride with it. I think it looks great. It gives it a bit of a safari look. Again, many of these entrances are not really themed, so it's kind of hard to design around them without leaving things completely bland. So I try to like keep the decorations to like a very low budgety type decorations, but still add some level of decoration and not keep it super bland. This is, by the way, my attempt at creating my own custom lamp. I started with I think the biggest thing here, by the way, is, sorry, I keep changing my mind about what I'm going to say, but the lamps here are a little bit oversized, and I think if the lamps were a little bit smaller. And I think there are some smaller lamps, but but after adding 2 or 3 of those, I was like, this doesn't look great. So I don't know if it's the fact that they look like well too designed for the ride. So I decided to sort of, undo that and create one large hanging light instead of 2. And this made the design a little bit nicer, in my opinion. I think it looks a little bit more simple. And obviously I had to bring it down because otherwise the lamp was a little bit too high, which it shouldn't be a problem, but it didn't look as cozy as it does now that I brought it back down. Now, all I'm doing next is just wrapping the edges of this Rocktopus ride, or the Monster Ride, which is what's actually called. And it's also in this general area. In fact, the Rocktopus ride originally is where the roller coaster that I put down last is. So, we're not that far off. Yeah, just putting the big sign in the middle. That font I actually kind of liked. I mean, it's not a great font by any means. I would never use that in a real design project, but matching the theme of this ride, I thought it was like okay. So I just, unfortunately, I clipped it to the wrong type of building, and I have to do it again. That's another thing that I wish you could do, just copy and paste things that you've already done between buildings, but no, you can only do one thing at a time. It's okay, it's not a huge deal. It only took me another 30 or so seconds, maybe a minute, to get it back to the location where I want it. Also, trying to be very, very careful when I put down trees to not, clip any of my existing elements into them. Even though you can barely see them, I also wanted things to look a little bit more realistic, so you gotta be careful with that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, I'm trying to, this whole island is going to be mostly this ride. I'm thinking of having a couple of shops to that, to the empty area on the, well, now it's on the back, now it's on the left. I'm not going to tackle that in this episode, by the way. Hopefully in the next one, we can just wrap up this whole island and start moving on, because there's 2 big, there's 2 more, big roller coasters that I want to add. Ooh, I couldn't remember the word. And, there's quite a bit of work left to do, but I'm actually kind of excited about how much progress we've been making lately. And in the meantime, I just want to let you enjoy some cinematics while we take one final look at some of the work that we've been doing today. And also want to take this opportunity to ask you to consider liking this video if you enjoyed it as much as I did. And also, if you're new to the channel, man, I don't know how to outro anymore. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing if you haven't already also. In the description, you're going to find a link to the full playlist in case you might have missed an older episode. And if you want to help support the channel, you can go to strictoaster.com/store and get a sweet t-shirt from Interama, or some like cool stickers and things that will really, really help a lot as well, and you get something in return. But that's all for now. I want to thank you all for watching and hope to see you in the next one.